Hi, this is just a brief review of what we've been doing this last chapter. In our last chapter, we've been learning how to solve rational equations. And this is an equation because there is an equal sign. So we're going to go through just 3 types of problems. And the first type of problem we saw where we were just trying to solve for a variable, one variable in a rational equation. So what we said was look at your 2 denominators. And when you have your 2 denominators, decide what is the common denominator between 8 and 12. And hopefully you said the common denominator between 8 and 12 is 24. So what we did in class is we multiplied every numerator by 24. So 24 times 3t minus 2. We didn't change the denominator, equals 24 times t minus 1. Again, didn't change the denominator, plus 24 times 1, which is just 24. After we multiplied by that common denominator, we canceled. So 24 divided by 8 is 3, so we have 3 times 3t minus 2 equals 24 divided by 12 is 2. So we have 2 times t minus 1 plus 24. And by canceling, you notice we have no more fractions. From here, we just distribute. I guess it's not really equals anymore, but so we have 9t minus 6 equals 2t minus 2. Don't forget to distribute to both numbers. That's a place where I sometimes make my mistakes. So I get 24. From here, I'm going to maybe combine like terms. So I have 9t minus 6 equals 2t plus 22. I'm going to subtract 2t from both sides. So I have 7 minus 6 equals 22. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So 7t equals 28. And I get t equals 4. What we've talked about doing in our problems is checking to make sure they're not extraneous. Again, if you are going to check, you just plug it in, or you can make sure that it doesn't divide by 0, but my check would be, is 3 times 4 minus 2 divided by 8. What do I get? I get 12 minus 2 over 8, or 10 over 8, which is 5 over 4. Is that the same as the other side? So 4 minus 1 divided by 12 plus 1. So 3 over 12 plus 1, which would be 12 over 12. So that is 15 over 12. If I divide both of those by 3, I get 5 over 4. So yes, this is a correct solution. So that's one type of problem that you will see on your test. The second type of problem looks almost exactly the same, except there are variables in the denominator. And in this problem, when you look for your common denominator, you have to look at all the denominators. In case of this one, you should factor it. So you'd have plus 3 times z minus 2. So that turns out to be my common denominator. So I'm going to multiply all of my terms by that z plus 3 times the z minus 2. So when I do that, I get z times z plus 3 times z minus 2. Again, keep your denominator the same, so it's still z minus 2. Minus, multiply the 1 times that common denominator, so z plus 3 times, again, think of that 1 being there, z minus 2 over that common denominator of z plus 3 equals the 10 times the z plus 3 over the z minus 2 over that factored denominator of z plus 3 times z minus 2. So multiply every numerator by that common denominator. Now my next step is to cancel. So cancel, and I'm left with z times z plus 3 minus, cancel out those, minus, and I'm just going to say minus 1 times z minus 2 equals, cancel, equals 10. So again, be very careful when you're distributing, which is why I kept that 1 there. So I get z squared plus 3z minus z plus 2 equals 10. So I have z squared plus 2z plus 2 equals 10. And now I notice it's a quadratic, so I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides to get negative 8. And now when I have a quadratic, I have to factor. So z and z, something that multiplies to negative 8, so and adds to positive 2, so that's why I make it a positive 4 and a negative 2. So my two possible answers are z could be a 2, or z could be a negative 4. Now, just like our previous example, you have to check. And when you go back up to your original equation, we know that z cannot be 2, because that would make us divide by 0. And we know that z cannot be negative 3. Same thing here, it can't be negative 3. And this one can't be 2. So our only solution is the negative 4. This number is what we called in class an extraneous solution because we solved for it. However, it does not work in our original equation. So an extraneous solution is one that we solve for. We solve for 2, but we realize 2 cannot work in our original equation. So we've now gone through 2 examples. These are the types of problems that you'll see on your test. And the third thing that you'll see in your test is a section of word problems. So here's our word problem. It said, Bill rode 30 kilometers upstream against a 2 kilometer per hour current and back again in a total of 8 hours. How fast can he row in still water? Remember, anytime you're trying to figure out what your variable should be, figure out what the question's asking. So x in this case, x is going to be the rate, how fast, in still water. Because we're talking about a rate and they're giving us distances, we recognize that we're going to have distance equals rate times time. And it might help to make your little chart that we've been doing. So if he's going to go upstream, then he has to come back down. And the distances for both of those have to be both 30 kilometers because he's going the same place. The rate upstream, it says it's upstream against the current, so that's Bill rowing, but minus the 2 kilometer per hour current. When he's going downstream, he's still rowing, but he's getting pushed, so it's plus 2 kilometers per hour. And it says the whole total of the trip is going to be 8 hours. So remember that when we were talking about how do you solve for time if we know 8 hours, remember that we can manipulate this equation and we can say, well, time would equal the distance over the rate. And we know that total time up and down has to be 8 hours. Well, the time for the first trip is my distance 30 over x minus 2. And the time for my second trip, because I'm taking my distance, of 30 over x plus 2. And those 2 times have to add up to 8 hours. So again, I was able to use some algebra to figure out that time is distance divided by rate. And so this is my time rowing upstream plus my time rowing, downstream. So this would be the plus 2. The upstream, would be minus 2. And if you add those 2 together, it says it's going to be a total time of 8 hours. So our word problem allowed us to write this equation. And now from our previous 2 examples, we should know how to solve this. We multiply everything by the common denominator. And our common denominator should be x minus 2, x plus 2. So if I do that, that's going to be 30 times x minus 2, x plus 2, all over x minus 2, plus 30 times x minus 2, x plus 2, over that common denominator, or the denominator, of x plus 2, equals 8 times x minus 2, x plus 2. Then from here we cancel, just like we did in our previous problem. So cancel, 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 cancel. So I'm left with 30 times x plus 2 plus 30 times x minus 2 equals 8 times x minus 2, x plus 2. From here, we just have to distribute and solve for x. So we have 30x plus 60 plus 30x minus 60 equals, and I'm going to first FOIL, so I get x squared minus 4. Then from here, I'm going to continue to combine. So on this side, I'm just left with 60x. Those 60's cancel. On the other side, I'm left with 8x squared minus 8 times 4, which is 32. So I notice again I have a quadratic. When you have a quadratic, you want to get all of your values to one side, set them equal to 0, and you want to start factoring. In this case, I noticed that there is at least a common denominator of a 4. So if I take a 4 out, I'm left with 2x squared minus, well, if I divide this by 4, I have 15x, and if I divide that by 4, I have 8. I don't see any other common denominators. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to get rid of the 4. Any number 0 divided by number is 0, so now I have 2x squared minus 15x minus 8, and the reason I do that is it's much easier to factor this type of problem. So from here, I'm going to do my AC method and get 16. I need something that then adds to negative 15, and I'll find that that's negative 16 and positive 1. But because it starts with a 2, I'm going to divide both of those by 2. So I'm actually left with a negative 8 and a 1/2. So that allows me to factor to x minus 8 times 2x plus 1. And all I have to do is say, well, x could be 8 kilometers per hour rowing, or x would be negative 1/2 kilometers per hour. Since you can't row a negative speed, that's sort of like an extraneous solution. And so it's basically saying, if I go back all the way up to my original problem, Bill can row 8 kilometers per hour. And that will allow him to do those same things. So those are the 3 types of problems that you should see on your chapter review that we reviewed in 5.8, 5.9, and all 2 word problem worksheets. So review these, come in Monday morning during resource, Monday after school, Tuesday morning during resource to review for your test. Remember, this is the last week of the term, so any missing homework that you have needs to be turned in this week if you would like credit on it for your term grade. Again, if you have any questions, please email or come in.